Hi all, and welcome back to our chat on technological transformation in construction organizations. If you're joining us for the first time, be sure to check out our previous episodes on identifying and prioritizing procedural pain points in the organization and how to build a great team to take on those priorities. Today, with my co-host Roger and our guest Ryan Hale, we'll be talking about change implementation. Now that you have priorities to address and a team to take them on, how does that team chart a course forward? Ryan, how does the team create a plan for addressing a priority procedural pain point?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted, right? To me, everything starts with understanding the true pain point, right? I mean, obviously, we've understood it enough to prioritize it. We've understood it enough to say, hey, we're going to go execute against that because we believe investing resources in this project is going to alleviate that pain. But you truly don't understand what the real pain is until you're walking the process or you're mapping the process out on a wall, right? And you're understanding how the 10 or 15 process steps interact with each other, how they interact across roles, how they interact across functions of the organization. Truly getting into the details of what data and information need to flow from one person to the other, at what timing, what reports need to be monitored throughout that process or are being monitored throughout that process, what decisions are being made from those reports and how that could impact the other process steps. To me, getting into that level of detail is where it all begins. And until you get there, you can't understand root cause of what's going on. And until you can understand root cause, you can't really understand what solutions would even be viable to solve it. And until you can't understand what solutions are viable, you can't really put together a good plan to execute against. And then and only then can you even think about change management of what those solutions are actually going to look like and how they're going to impact individuals.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's some fairly important chunks there that you have to get out of the way. You have to make sure, everyone understands things. What kind of time is spent going through that particular step, making sure you've got everybody on board, singing from the same hymnal, etc.?
I think the answer there, Roger, is it depends. All right, one of my favorite answers, unfortunately, but it does depend. I would say that I believe getting everyone on the same page up front, getting everyone to sing from the same sheet of music as you referenced there is probably the most important piece of this, of any project, really. If I think if you spend 5 or 10 times as much time working on getting everyone organized and aligned up front, it will save you 10, 20, 30x the energy on the back end. I've seen that in my career at least. So the alternative to that is, hey, let's just go organize ourselves. Let's get a couple people in a room. Let's create solutions. And then let's just go tell the organization what the solution is going to be. That is typically met with instant pushback because who are they to think they know what I do? Who are they to tell me what I'm going to do? They didn't even ask my opinion. That's typically the kind of stuff you're going to hear if you do it in that manner. So spending the time up front to understand points of view, to allow people to have a say, to hear people out, not only makes it easier on the back end, by God, you may actually learn something. Yeah. And you may actually learn about some other pain points, that solutions that you're going to go put in place and need to solve. So spend a lot of time there. It will pay itself off in spades on the back end.
Yeah. A lot of focus on the front end. That makes a lot of sense. Move slow to move fast, right? So in that slow moving first part, obviously, as you're digging in, you're thinking about this stuff, that's taking time, right? There might be some money that needs to get spent in order to get things moving or to take things through to the finish line. I'm interested in, how does the financial, monetary money conversation happen? Is that something that the leadership of the team kind of decides and passes down to those that are more project manager and functional expert, or is that an entire conversation? Curious of your insights on that.
Yeah. Look, leadership of the organization, as they're prioritizing their pain points and figuring out which ones they need to go solve, I think at that stage, they have to have a rough idea of what a solution costs. Now that, when I say rough, you know, you're measuring in probably to the closest 10,000 or 25,000 or whatever it may be for your organization. But they've got to have a rough idea of what we think we're going to go spend. Now, when the project team starts executing and they create their plan and they're truly digging into the solutions that they want to implement, they should be able to come back to that same leadership team and say, hey, you thought it was roughly going to be this. We now know that it's going to be much closer to this, maybe more, maybe less. But ultimately, it does reside with the project team. The responsibility is go tell me how much this is actually going to cost us. But if the leadership team doesn't have a rough idea up front, then why was that project or initiative even prioritized where it was, and why was it even selected?
So given that budget is always going to be a major consideration, I assume controlling risk is also a fairly significant issue. What are some tips you've got on trying to minimize the risk of failure on some of these, some of the change management?
Yeah. So first off, I'm not a person that thinks failure is bad.
Right.
Right. I mean, I think you've got to be in the arena fighting the fight, and that's the only place that you're gonna learn. Those that are in it are going to stumble upon risks, and they are not going to get things right, and they are going to fail. There's no doubt about that. It's the only way we learn as people. It's the only way that you can teach younger folks on your team and build them up in the future. If you have this expectation where everything on a project's going to go absolutely perfectly, either one, your expectations are way out of whack, or two, you just shouldn't execute a project. But managing the risk itself, I think that takes a keen eye from the project leadership. I think they have to try to be thinking 1 or 2 steps ahead in that project. Yes, the team today is working on solving this piece of it, but as they solve that, what's the next thing, or the 2 next things, or the 3 next things that they're going to encounter? And as the person responsible for leading that project, the project manager, let's say, I need to be thinking about all those things and trying to head those off at the pass. I also need to be not only tracking those, what they are and how I believe that we can mitigate them, but there needs to be an open flow of communication between that project manager and whoever the senior leadership or the executive, the champion, if you would, that's responsible for that initiative. So I don't think there's any rocket science here. I think it's a matter of making sure your project manager is staying a couple steps ahead, that they're not afraid to share with senior leadership that there is risk or that things aren't going perfectly. And that senior leadership is there as a support and guidance function to help them solve those risks or help them think through those risks in a holistic manner. It is not senior leadership's position to say, well, why didn't you alleviate that? Or I can't believe you missed that, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I agree that with the failure is not a bad thing. I mean, setting aside catastrophes. But yes, I agree with you. And I think we're going to have a whole nother session coming up on that. Am I right, Matt?
Yep, we do have that one coming up soon. I'm interested in digging into your last comments, Ryan. So if I'm a project manager who's in a situation where the leadership's given me this project and I'm not getting that exchange, I'm not getting that regular communication to help kind of create the guardrails of what's happening here, do you have any advice for them and how to approach trying to increase that level of communication?
Yeah, set a calendar invite that's reoccurring that forces it. Right? I mean, look, as a project manager, your role is not to just sit and wait to be told what to do. At least that wouldn't be my expectation. Your role is to be responsible for the outcome of that project. I mean, ultimately, the executive or the senior leader that's championing that, they're ultimately responsible for the outcome of it. But you as the project manager are just as responsible. So if you're not getting the support you need, if you're not getting the time with that executive or that champion to walk through the risks and to get guidance, well, that's on you. truly believe that's on you. Take the initiative, force their hand, show up, wait by their office door at 7:30 in the morning or 7 o'clock if you have to, right? But taking the approach of, well, I couldn't get in to talk to this person, so I guess the outcome is what the outcome is going to be. Man, that's dangerous. That's real dangerous.
For sure.
Well, again, I thank you for all of your insights during this session. It's always a pleasure to be talking to you. Look forward to a couple more of the ones that we've got coming up.
Great talking to you, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.